So, and also I was in the position of being a minority as well. And so that also helped me kind of open up to, the idea of intercultural communication, intercultural understanding. I wasn't familiar with those kind of terms at that time, but just I was dealing with, different ways of thinking, different ways of communicating. And so that was kind of my entry point. And
so wasn't this very interesting, Brent? Because in Hawaii, you would have this melting pot of different nationalities. And you even mentioned, even within the United States, you would be a minority in Hawaii.
That's right. That's right. And there, I had, classmates and neighbors and friends, co-workers and everything. Some from the Philippines. Actually, that was my first introduction to the Philippines. These were second, third generation Filipinos living in Hawaii.
Living in Hawaii.
Exactly. Same thing with Japanese, Chinese, Portuguese. And so it really was a melting pot. I say melting pot, but they really did keep kind of parts of their own identity, their cultural identity,
cultural heritage,
which really made it's just a great place to grow up, and especially when I was young at that age, it was just a kind of mind opener to, the opportunities that we have in the world. And so then when I got into education, I actually started at University of Hawaii through their Maui campus. So I was on the island of Maui, and while I was in, yeah. So it's a great place. I have really fond memories. My sister's still there. I have nephews and nieces in Maui, and I really love it. But that for me was really key, because one of the things that I did is there was through the library, there was I don't know what to call it, but a kind of mentoring center. And so I signed up actually as a mentor, or basically I was helping the exchange students, the foreign students, mainly with their writing and their different homework assignments that they had at the college.
But were you actually already majoring in English or intercultural communication?
No, at that time it was just liberal arts. So I was, taking classes in philosophy and sociology, economics. So really, really a broad education. But
so what happened with your experience? Actually, it sounds like a peer tutorial or mentoring of these international or exchange students in the University of Hawaii. How did you think the experience of the international students was, especially in dealing with the English language?
Right. Well, so a lot of those things you never think about. And this is a big thing, is unless you're in that situation, it kind of really is not part of your consciousness. But when I was working with the students, I realized the kind of things that they were struggling with. And some of it was linguistic, but there were also cultural parts of it as well. So that really kind of helped me, trying to put myself into their shoes. And then I started, actually, this is a funny story, but my roommate actually said, "Hey, I'm studying Japanese. Do you want to join the class?" And I thought, I'm not doing anything. Sure, I'll take it.
Okay, liberal arts education.
And eventually he quit, but I continued, and I really got into it. And that is when I started meeting more of the international students. So we did have a few students from Japan, and so we did a program for them. And then also I had an opportunity to go to Japan the first time. And I know, April, Dr. ALCAZAR, you and I have talked about this a lot in the past, but that you participated in exchange, both as a host and also as a
student
sojourner.
Myself. Yes,
right.
And as a young person.
But I remember, our discussions in the past that really, really influenced, ideas, and you realize the value. And I really did realize the value of that overseas experience. So eventually, when I became an educator, I really want to try to, prepare or give those kind of opportunities to my learners.
Yes. So as a native English language speaker, of course, as you mentioned, you didn't really have to think about or face the kind of difficulties that foreign students would probably be struggling with the English language. So how did you eventually come to the conclusion that you wanted to actually study more deeply about English language and specifically for teaching the language?
Right. So while I was at the University of Hawaii, while I was on Maui, through my Japanese teacher introduced me to a high school teacher at the local high school, and they were doing a program for a private school and up on the mountain in Maui, and they were hosting students actually from Kansai. There's a school called Mukugawa Women's High School, Junior High School, and University.
So Kansai is the southern part of a region of Japan, right?
So that high school teacher found out that I was working in the mentoring center or helping with that. And so she asked me through my Japanese teacher if I would like to teach this group of students coming over. They were there for an intensive summer program. And I've never been, a teacher before that, except to say, like, I used to teach windsurfing on one of my first jobs in Maui. Yeah, but also, I learned about, those kind of baby steps that people need, So this is a big problem, especially at university, is the gap in knowledge. University professors often don't remember what it's like to be at a beginner level.
Exactly.
And so they're teaching up here, but actually the student is receiving down here. And that gap, that knowledge gap really is important. So
were you able to bridge at that point with your first teaching experience with the students?
No, it was a disaster.
Really?
It wasn't a disaster. I mean, the materials were prepared for me mostly, but standing in front of a group, at that time, I think I was probably 19, 20, maybe 21.
So just like our audience, maybe they're deciding what to do with their lives.
Exactly. And the students, there were junior high school girls, and I think there were probably 30 of them or something. And I was totally unprepared for that kind of situation. So I stumbled through the lesson plan. I think they had a good experience. They learned something, hopefully. But, looking back on it, it was just like, what am I doing?
Okay. But was it an eye-opener for you in terms of making a decision about your career?
It really was. And then when I went to Japan the first time, it was just for a month, but I really did fall in love, with the country. It's really, I really wanted to know more about it. So when the opportunity came up, there was a 1-year program, and I went on that 1-year program. And just as I was finishing that 1-year program, I was thinking, actually 1 year is not really enough. That's just kind of the surface. And I found an advertisement in the newspaper for Sony Language Laboratory. And it was for a part-time English teacher. And so I applied and started working. This is just as I was finishing the program in Japan. And so that was actually when I really thought about, this might be something that I want to do as a career.
And by that time, had you finished your college degree by this time? Yes,
I had just finished all my credits. Actually, when I started, it's either I had either just got my diploma or just before I got my diploma. That was the undergraduate, so BA.
Yeah, so that was very crucial about your life decision, actually.
Right. But it was also a really good experience because I was working with a real big range of learners. Some of them were high school students. Some of them were housewives, businessmen. And so I also started to see the kind of different needs and realize that there's no kind of unified one size fits all for education. You really have to think about where their learner is, what their background is, and we have to make adjustments.
Yeah, so that was more of like targeted learning for your students. So what happened next, Brent, after you had this experience with a wide range of students? Did it lead you to a decision that now you really wanted to pursue this career for English
Right.
language teaching?
Yes, it was around this time. So part of my duties at Sony, well, of course, I taught in-house lessons. Again, people were coming to our school. This was in Osaka.
Yes.
But they also sent me to different companies. So I was working for a big pharmaceutical company, a big trading house, a big shipbuilder,
So
and
business organizations, right?
business organizations, right? And one of the things that one of the places that they sent me was a school that was preparing interpreters for tourists. In Japan, you need a license to be a licensed
Guide, yes.
interpreter guide. You need to pass certain tests. And so I was preparing students for that test. And it was about that time that I really saw language teaching as a profession. Before that time, it was kind of a job. It was something that I did, but I never really thought about it as a career. But as I started getting into the real professional side, the business English, and also this interpreter guide test, then I started thinking about a career. And just about the time, so it would have been around the end of the 90s, beginning of 2000, that Sony sold the department that I was working for. And so that's when I moved into university education. At that time, I started teaching part-time at a couple universities in Kansai. And also at the same time, I became involved in JELT, which you're familiar with JELT. You were brought to Japan as the Asian scholar.
Yes.
But JELT is a professional organization for language teachers, and that one is probably the most important decision that I ever made, was to join that. I joined the local chapter and started taking different roles. I was program chair for a while, publicity chair, and then eventually president of the local chapter. But the presentations that I attended, the conferences that I attended, everything that I did at that time, I was learning, and I was just picking up ideas and kind of forming my own approach to language education. But that professional organization is probably the biggest step I ever made.
So maybe you can differentiate for our audience, really, when you talked about the difference that you saw between a job and a career, because maybe it is at this point when we are actually conducting like counseling for our audience so that they can try to achieve what their academic goals might be. Right.
Well, and of course my path is different, and each person's path in life is different, and the experiences that we have. But my feeling, like up until that time, is I'd done quite a few different things. In Hawaii, it's amazing that
many things, right?
Yeah, I work for United Airlines. I used to do wood floors, carpentry, work in restaurants.
So exploring the whole gamut of possibilities, right?
Yeah. And what I tell my students nowadays is each one of those experiences was really valuable in one way or another. It helped me understand, for example, I often use this example with my daughter, but working in restaurants as a waiter, what I learned is no wasted steps. You don't have time to, take a knife out to a table and then come back and pick up a glass and take it. You have to think what's happening, and you have to be prepared for whatever comes up. And so each one of those experiences. But again, when I started teaching, it was another job. I was kind of, seeing what was out there, seeing what kind of fit. And yeah, I think teaching really caught. And then again, like I said, when I started seeing the professional side to it, then I thought of it as a profession and a career. And
Yes. So
for
I
me,
think
that
that's
was
a very important lesson and step for our students to understand that even as they are going through like their studies right now as students, whatever experiences they might be learning will be of value somewhere down the line. But eventually, at a certain point in time, they have to make a decision about the kind of career or calling or profession that they really want to be involved in, so that all of those experiences will be brought together towards a development to become a professional in a particular field. Okay, so
right.
I think, Brent, now that you've decided at this point in your life that you really wanted to make a career out of being a teacher, and specifically for English language teaching, what kind of skills or aptitudes and competencies did you try to develop yourself, and which you believe are important if students would like to follow your career path?
Right. So for me in language education, again, through the connections at the with the JALT, the professional
Yes,
organization,
of language
um,
teachers. Yes.
I was just at first I was just trying to be a sponge. So I tried to read everything.
Mhm.
At that time, we're going back to the 90s and stuff like that, and
Yes.
into the 2000s. But
No
there,
internet yet at that time.
exactly, and there was a big kind of shift. Any kind of field you get into, they go through these kind of paradigm shifts.
Sure.
And
Definitely.
when I got into language education, it was the audio lingual method. So we
Yes.
learned through our ears and that kind of repetition, and
Yes.
that kind of faded out. And then there's some fads that they kind of come and go, but I was
Yes.
kind of hungry for everything, and so and doing a lot of reading on my own.
Mhm.
And so then, again, this is like the early 90s, but I realized that I needed more education, more formal education. I was
Yes.
getting a lot of informal and on the job practice, but
Mhm.
I reached a stage where I realized that, if I was going to make this a profession or a career,
Yes.
I need
Yes.
to learn more. And that's when I went back and I started studying with Indiana University, actually.
Yes.
And that was the early days of distance education. So actually everything was done by mail. So
Yes.
they would
And
they would
snail mail at that time.
I
Big
would
packages.
exactly, I would get a package in the mail, and it would have my lessons and my
Uh-huh.
syllabus and my reading list.
Uh-huh.
And
And you'll have to mail
Amazon
it back, right?
and Amazon was just starting. So, I'd get my reading list and I could order
Uh-huh.
online,
Yes.
around the, 2002,
Yes.
2003, I could finally order books online.
Yes.
Um, and so, yeah, and then exactly, I would finish my lessons and stuff. I'd package them up and I'd send them back. So
Mhm.
anyway, that I think going back to school
Mhm.
and getting my first master's, and the first master's was in language education, like you mentioned,
Yes. Yes.
and it wasn't limited to English language education. And
But
so,
general language
right,
education. Mhm.
yeah, and then eventually, or as soon as I finished, or as I was finishing
The
um,
master's
the
program, right?
master's degree, actually, we in that program we had to take 3 courses that were outside the department. And that's when I
Okay.
got interested, or I took some courses in instructional systems technology, it's
Okay.
basically instructional design.
Yes.
Instructional design, as you know, it's
Yes.
more for, like, even for corporate settings, for
Exactly.
for
Yes.
training new employees. So
Mhm.
this is what we want from our employees. They need to be able to do this. This is
Yes.
where they're at. So how
Yes.
can we design that middle part? And
Yes.
and
To
so for
achieve
me,
the objectives. Yes.
and this again was the starting of the internet, getting into more technology, educational technology,
Mhm.
instructional technology. So for me, that was like opening a whole brand new world. And
Exactly.
so I put the kind of two together. So as soon as I finished my master's in language education, I started another master's in instructional technology.
Yes.
And so I put those two together. And then eventually I decided that I wanted to take the next step and get the doctorate. And that's when I contacted University of Reading. And that was also not about language in English language in particular, but it was more about language education. My thesis was on English language education.
Mhm. But I think what we're seeing a thread here really is that regardless of what language you might be dealing with, there are many similarities insofar as language education is concerned around the world. It just so happens that, for instance, in your case, you were dealing with English maybe as a native speaker and then eventually teaching it as a second language or as a foreign language to your students. And so
Right.
that is sort of like a sub-specialization insofar as the teaching of the language is concerned. So right now, with all of your work that you have done for this number of years already, so what sort of advice could you give to our students if indeed they were interested in language education, and not necessarily specifically for English, but how to really go about developing their passion for it if they wanted it to be their profession, their career? What sort of skills, competencies, and experiences should they be looking at?
Yeah. So there's a few things. Even before we get to the technological side and the skills side and the knowledge side, just stay hungry. I mean, they're really, you have to look for the things that catch your interest, and
Yeah,
also,
exactly.
get, again, passion. If you're not
Yes,
passionate
that's
about it,
part of it.
it's really hard to continue. And then as far as the skills, there are some, again, I think the reading as much as you can and finding a kind of niche. Like for me, my background, because I taught with Sony and I'd done the business classes, when I
That is
started at the
business
university
English, right?
level,
Yes.
I was focused on business English programs. So when I
Yes.
got my first full-time job, I was in charge of the business English program at Kobe Gakuen University.
Mhm.
And so at that time, again, I'd put together, it's kind of like combining different threads and
Mhm.
into your own kind of unique, and making your kind of niche. Because
Exactly.
basically what you're doing is you're selling yourself. So what do you
Yes.
have that
Mhm.
somebody else doesn't have? And
Mhm.
for me, I had the language education background. I had started making some websites, and in the early days,
Yeah.
doing online instructional kind of
Materials design.
tasks
Yes.
and business English. So I put those three together as kind of my own niche. But
Mhm.
um, I think reading in the field, understanding, actually, and this is something that I think is also for language educators,
Mhm.
be passionate about language. Language itself is real, it's amazing, and
It's what
you could,
differentiates the humans from all others.
it really is, it really is. And how it influences our thought. Language influences our thought, the relationship between culture and language, the difference, like how the brain processes language.
Exactly.
There's so many exciting fields, and there's research, there people are out there around the world doing this cutting edge research in all of these fields, and we
Mhm.
have access to that. I mean, we can,
Right
you know,
now, yes.
we can find the journal. Most of it we can find online for free. Of course, some of it, we have to pay subscriptions and
Subscribe,
stuff,
yes.
but
Mhm.
through libraries, through the internet, we can
Yes.
see this kind of cutting edge research in language education. And that is a super valuable resource. And
Mhm.
that, again, influences how you teach,
Mhm.
what's your understanding about how the mind processes language, how
Exactly.
we humans acquire a second language. Your
Mhm.
own philosophy or your own worldview will influence how you teach. And so
Mhm.
you have to understand that.
Mm. So I think being informed about beyond what is really the skills and competencies of your field is what will enrich, I think, language teaching, because that will be the context and the content itself of like
Right.
language education.
You know,
So I think,
so I was
yes,
just going to
go ahead.
say, I think you also need to appreciate and recognize your weaknesses and blind spots, and be
Mhm.
humble enough to always learn. You know, so I'm not going to say my age, but
Yes.
I still consider myself a learner. You know,
Yes.
I'm always trying to look to learn.
And I think
Um,
one of the things that we wanted to emphasize in education is you can be a lifelong learner, a
right,
perpetual student, always
exactly,
exploring. And your age
exactly.
won't show despite that. I
I don't
see.
know about
So
that.
yes. So I think, Brent, we've had some very interesting discussion here. And I think for now, maybe we can impart some of our important insights into language education, specifically in English language teaching in your experience. And maybe you can give to our audience, our televiewers, again, part of what you can impart to them for their particular career choices, their decisions that they're going to be making in life, and if they wanted to pursue a career in language education, maybe you can provide them some insights into what they can start preparing right now.
Yeah. I believe networking is super important. So I mentioned JALT, or the Professional Language Teachers Association.
Mhm.
First of all, you know, those networks, um, you know, extend your reach.
Yes,
You know, again, one person can't know everything, and so the more
not
people you know,
possible.
the more people that you know, the more people that you can talk with and stuff.
Yes.
That's gonna help you, enrich you. And also when it comes to job hunting, that's where
Mhm.
you're going to hear about the jobs. So um, teaching yourself, always being hungry to learn something new.
Mhm.
Also looking for that kind of unique connections. You know,
Mhm.
it might be technology and language education, or it might be language education and chemistry, or you know, medicine,
Yes.
because you know that connection, that niche, is going to
Mhm.
help make you more marketable. Uh,
Yes.
then yeah, so that's probably the two biggest ones I would say is networking, keep learning, and then try to find out what's unique about you. Uh,
Yes. And this, to our audience, they will want to discover and explore. And I think this is like one of our pathways by which we can provide them more information and knowledge through a virtual broadcast, a reach that normally we will not have the opportunity to have, for example, you speaking to us and having your company. And yet here we are in this age now of technology and virtual broadcast, that we have a wider audience to reach.
Yeah, it's really true. And there's workshops and seminars and online meetings every day. You can find something, you know, there with the different organizations, and somebody is always planning something. So yeah, and so we're, in a sense, you know, we're very lucky. And COVID maybe kind of forced us into this. And
Mhm.
some people were more prepared for it than others, but I think, you know, more and more people are going to embrace it, and then it really does. It makes the whole world as accessible to us now.
Yes. So I think with that, we've had such a fruitful discussion. Thank you so much, Dr. Brent Jones, our expert in the field of English language teaching. So we're so looking forward to meeting with you again and interacting. And thank you so much for your time. So stay safe and healthy, and we will see you again very soon.
Thank you very much, Dr. Alcazar. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I really cherish the relationship that we've been developing over the many years. So I look forward to many more face-to-face meetings. So
Yes.
I like seeing everybody online, but the face-to-face meetings are you can't be matched.
Yes, so we look forward to that day when it will be all possible again. Thank you so much, and we'll be right back, okay?
Hello, I'm Melinda Kiefer, and I'm proud to bring you stories from across our great state on Live Green Tennessee. In this segment, we look at the Tennessee Renewable Energy and Development Council. Known as TREEDC, this Tennessee-based energy group fast-tracks new green energy opportunities in our state. It is spread over 75 cities where extension meetings provide hands-on demonstrations and training. Emily Osman of WJLT in Martin tells us how Jackson State Community College hosted this forward-thinking group as they shared innovative ideas at their 3rd annual forum this year.
We're here in Jackson, Tennessee. This is the 3rd annual West Tennessee Renewable Energy Forum. I've sponsored this event for 3 years. Some of our sponsors are the City of Jackson, Jackson Energy Authority, of course, the Tennessee Renewable Energy and Economic Development Council, the Jackson Chamber of Commerce, as well as the University of Tennessee MTAS. We've had several presentations today. We've had a presentation from Congressman Stephen Fincher's office. We've also had a presentation from the Tennessee Valley Authority discussing the Green Power Switch program, as well as we had a presentation on sustainable agriculture. It's very important as a city councilman to put on these type of events. At the end of the day, it's about economic development and jobs. And through TREEDC, we've seen the opportunities for farmers and business people to reduce their energy costs, to stop our dependence on foreign oil, and to protect the environment. So programs like this are very, very important to cities like Jackson.
It's an honor to be out here in Jackson. When we started TREEDC in 2008 and we polled the communities across the state, West Tennessee really stepped up and helped join TREEDC, which was kind of odd because we were formed in East Tennessee, so go figure. But we appreciate the support of Mayor David Gordon from Covington, who's our West Tennessee coordinator, Mayor Jerry Giss, and of course Councilman Ernest Brooks. We're the only green-related organization in the country that is led by local officials who want jobs for their communities. We don't have that typical green organization approach where we point fingers at people. We try and solve problems, and we're very positive. We got started in 2008 because UT and the state started a project to develop switchgrass ethanol. The plan was to develop 1 billion gallons across the state, and TREEDC thought at the time it'd be great to bring the communities together to help accelerate development of the ethanol. We were started by 4 mayors in the Upper Cumberland territory, that's the Cookeville area, along with former University of Tennessee President Dr. Joe Johnson. So we started in 2008, and today we have over 80 cities and counties that are members. And basically we're a grassroots network of cities and counties and businesses who are trying to create a path to fast-track renewables. We initially started with a switchgrass ethanol project, but we morphed into solar, compressed natural gas, other biofuels like biodiesel. Whatever the communities need, we try and help bring it to them. Well, Tennessee has used a balanced, diversified approach in renewables, which is very important. The state started these energy efficiency block grants in 2009, and they were $100,000 grants for energy efficient improvements to cities and counties. So that was a great step. The state's also been very active in the solar industry.
Tennessee has been looked at as one of the fastest growing, well, one of the 3 fastest growing states relative to renewable energy. And that was done by a Pew Charitable Trust study. So we're very, very proud of the work that has been accomplished up to this point. We talked about Jackson has a 1 megawatt solar array here in the city. We're very proud of that. There's a 5 megawatt solar array in Haywood County. So for Tennessee, these are some very, very huge projects that have created jobs and are growing our economy here.
In 2009, there were only 151 solar installations. That grew to in 2010, and now in March of 2012, there's 864 solar sites. And really, it's because of the Green Power Switch program and the consumers' participation in it. And so I want you to be really proud, because the little steps and the little changes that you're making, they really have made a difference.
Greenest state in the land of the free. Are we really the greenest state in the land of the free? What are we doing to make ourselves the greenest state in the land of the free? One thing we're doing, and one thing the TVA has done, is set up what's called the Green Power Switch Program. I don't know if you guys, anybody signed up for Green Power, but a few years ago I opened up my, I'm from Knoxville, and we have the Knoxville Utilities Board, and I opened up my KUB bill, and there in my KUB bill was a little flyer that said, you can sign up for Green Power. Pay $4 a month and volunteer to buy green power and help create a green market in the state of Tennessee. So I signed up, and I've been paying $4 a month on my utility bill, and the TVA, working through the power distributors, goes and purchases green power, some type of green power, solar power, wind power, renewable, some type of renewable energy power. They purchase some type of green power to help out the Tennessee Valley. Help reduce our dependence on foreign oil, help encourage the creation of domestic supplies. So all of us, I assume that all of us who are here today at the Tennessee Renewable Energy Economic Development Council are interested in a couple of things. One, we're interested in renewable energy. And two, we're interested in economic development. Ben Franklin said, do well by doing good. That's what we want to do. We want to encourage people to do well by doing good. And one way to do good is to buy green power. And one way to do well is to buy green power.
Good evening. Welcome to our televiewers and audience here in the Philippines and worldwide. So this is Attorney AMIHAN ALCAZAR, your host for AAA Live here at Katipunan channel, airing every Wednesdays, 7 to 8 in the evening. So today, as you know, I'm in the United States of America, and I'm very fortunate to be interviewing one of our main contacts here in the state of Tennessee. So let me introduce our guest for tonight, Mr. Warren Nevad, the Executive Director of the Tennessee Renewable Energy and Economic Development Council. Good evening, Mr. Nevad.
Good evening, April. Great to see you.
Yes, thank you so much, Warren, for giving into our invitation for this interview. So I think we'll really have to be a very interesting discussion for our audience. As you know, most of our audience in our program belong to the education sector, and our stakeholders, of course, involve students, teachers, educators, and all who have a stake and interest in education. So I think we'll have to really begin with giving a background to our audience about what the council is all about and what is the involvement of the academic institution of the University of Tennessee from its inception.
Well, TREEDC, our acronym for Tennessee Renewable Energy and Economic Development Council, was formed by the University of Tennessee, myself, and 4 mayors in Tennessee that were, one city was maybe 60 miles away, another one was 150. So we started out with 4 mayors. And what our goal, our mission was to be an economic development organization that promotes and connects renewable energy with economic development. And this could mean helping communities with renewable energy related projects. It could help cities become more energy conscious, university more energy conscious, look at energy efficiency. We say the most common form of clean energy is energy you don't use.
So actually, because there is a unit, as you are connected with that unit, the MTAS, or the Municipal Technical Assistance Service in the University of Tennessee. And one of the things that we want to emphasize is the function really of the higher education institution for extension or outreach program. Can you tell us how the academic institution of University of Tennessee have been helping local governments in the state of Tennessee?
Right. Well, the University of Tennessee is a land grant institution. What that means is years ago, the federal government gave university land to build. In exchange, the university would have to provide outreach to the community. So the organization I work for, Municipal Technical Advisory Service, we provide outreach to communities. We bring the university to the communities through education awareness, economic development, technical assistance.
So I think with that function of the university using its educational expertise, so can you tell us now about the three parties or tripartite organizations that make up the membership of TREEDC and what their roles and responsibilities are?
Right. Really three major, the local governments, cities and counties, state government, the university sector, community colleges, four-year schools, and then third, our business members. So we try and bring all three parties together for education, for business development, for technical assistance. Our organization is built upon the foundation of the goodwill of the University of Tennessee and our mayors. And through our mayors and the university, we help provide more opportunities for renewable energy development in Tennessee.
Okay. Can you cite for us some of the programs and projects that have already been implemented and are now in the pipeline, despite the fact that we are in the middle of the COVID pandemic now for TREEDC?
Right. Well, we completed an energy efficiency project for the city of Dunlap. What we did was we conducted an energy audit or assessment on how much energy they were using. Then we came up with a plan, and the plan included installing 9 small solar arrays at various city buildings, police department, fire department, city hall, water plant, to install LED lighting and also to install more efficient water meters.
Yes.
So the city is realizing an annual savings of over $150,000 in electricity, and in about 12 years, that project will pay for itself.
Let's see. So can you also describe for us the different kinds of renewable energies that have already been developed in the state of Tennessee?
Right. Of course, solar. That started with a partnership with the University of Tennessee, the state of Tennessee, with a $40 million solar project where they installed a 5-megawatt solar system in Haywood County. We also been involved with compressed natural gas for fleets, taking natural gas in a compressed form. It's cleaner fuel. It's more stable in price to provide for fleets. We're working with electric vehicle fleets in Tennessee. We've also working with alternative transportation fuels, renewable fuels like biodiesel or ethanol, and so forth.
So with all of these programs and projects that you are already very busy in the state of Tennessee, how then did the council conceptualize of international relations or affairs outside of the state of Tennessee?
Right, very good question.
Thank you.
We felt we wanted to really upgrade our membership business level and go after the Fortune 500 companies,
Yes.
the large companies that fly at 50,000 feet. We were mostly involved with the small businesses.
Yes.
So we felt that, these large companies have multinational offices in other countries. So we felt that if we had an international exchange program where we partner with our Tennessee cities, with a country's cities, and our colleges with colleges in that country, we could build a foundation of support for renewable energy. And then we could bring business opportunities in the U.S., would come over to the Philippines, maybe set up a local business, provide jobs and so forth. That's our vision. And we've had some challenges, and I think the vision is always timely. I believe that there's opportunities for renewable energy in the Philippines, mainly with the high electric costs and the frequent brownouts, that we really want to give people independence, energy independence.
Yes. So how do you foresee now a possible collaboration between the Philippines and the council, and specifically from the state of Tennessee? What are the possible prospects, especially because now we are undergoing a pandemic?
Right. Well, the University of Tennessee Institute for Public Service, which is the parent organization of the Municipal Technical Advisory Service, we provide technical assistance in the form of the Center for Industrial Services. They have provided with COVID reopening plans and COVID best practices and so forth. So, and through our network of cities and counties with the Institute of Public Service, we able to catalog best practices in COVID. And so we believe that later this year, when folks start going out and attending professional conferences, that will be really a key subject to talk about, you know, what were some lessons you learned in case we have another pandemic, who knows, what were the lessons learned, what should we have done differently, and just have everyone kind of put their heads together.
Okay. How about the working relationship and collaboration now with the academic institutions? Do you see some research programs and projects that may be on the pipeline?
Yes, I think with the change of administration in America, there's going to be more research opportunities in the field of clean energy.
Yes.
In some ways, 2021 feels like 2008,
yes,
when we started TREEDC, where you had a new administration come on. We were recovering from economy.
Yes.
And the price of fuel was increasing. Gas is, I think, increased 60 cents in the last few months.
Yes.
So you see all those factors, and today reminds me of what happened back in 2008.
Yes.
In our organization, we've been around for 13 years, so we're established.
Yes.
So
yes. So given these challenges, what were the lessons learned that you see from 2008 that could still be implemented now? And also, what are the newer challenges that need more innovative prospects that need to be addressed after this COVID pandemic?
well, you need to stimulate investors when you're talking about significant impacts of clean energy development. And the best way that you stimulate investors is to have more consistent energy policy. Don't change policies from one year to the next. Look at the long term. Have better planning. A community may have a problem with fallen trees and they want to get rid of it. So they think, well, we can put in a gasification system, make energy. Well, you have to have a steady feedstock for 20 years to make the project worthwhile. But our role, you know, we have our boots on the ground, is to kind of create an environment where people really want to become involved in renewable energy.
So with that kind of model that has proven very successful here in the state of Tennessee, how then can we move forward in the Philippines? Shall we begin with the academic institutions in the Philippines?
Yes, you could, in the Philippines, set up a TREEDC-like organization over there where you could select 4 mayors in the beginning from different parts of the country and have a university, a public university, kind of lead the charge.
Yes, and be the champion or the proponent.
What we did at UT, and we could help how you develop that model. And then you have these forums across the country, and you invite the business members. You know, you do a lot of research and get it out there. And then when you have the meetings, that's an opportunity where deals really start. So
I think it's very exciting, Warren, to actually look into this prospect now, especially because this is like one of my main goals, to be able to return to the Philippines and possibly lead the replication of this model, beginning also with this innovation after the pandemic. So there are many challenges that we are currently facing. And in fact, we know that some of the business organizations that TREEDC has members of also have some involvement in energy efficiencies, especially for medical services complex. Maybe you can talk to the innovative solutions that were made in the medical and health services in the state of Tennessee.
Right. Well, we're working with former owner of Puckett Ambulances, and that's his really area of expertise. And he believes there's opportunities to improve healthcare and emergency response in the Philippines. Emergency management, that we really need to be up to speed on that. That's a very important issue. Emergency management includes a pandemic, typhoon in the U.S., a tornado, a hurricane. So it's very important to have a plan in place of what if.
Yes, and also, you know, that the Philippines is very disaster prone. We've had some very major disasters in the form of typhoons and earthquakes. So that really needs a more long-term and sustainable solution about maybe a health services management system. And also energy efficiency would be part of it, because once you have all of these disasters, then usually energy is not available to the constituents. How about the possible electrification of those areas in the Philippines that really has no access to electricity? What kind of renewable energies you think are going to be more adaptable to those areas?
Well, probably small scale community systems where maybe a barangay has a solar array that can be a central source for electricity. You know, nowadays it's about the lithium battery.
Exactly.
They make these little kits where you have a battery, you charge it by a solar panel, and you have enough energy to provide for basic needs, for lighting, for your Wi-Fi, which is a basic need in the Philippines. Everybody has a phone. So that's something that we could look at. We're working with a startup company in the US that has developed a generator that operates off a lithium battery, so it doesn't have any noise or pollution. So it's clean, and that's something that could work in barangays or areas. You know, you'd want to come up with a good battery storage to be able to store, like when you generate solar, to store it and then use it at a later time.
Yes. So maybe you can also describe for us, Warren, the experience of the state of Tennessee, where we have a federal agency called the Tennessee Valley Authority, and really the possibility that it could be central to how we will replicate that model when we also have involvement with the national government's policy.
Right. Well, TVA is a wonderful institution. They serve parts of 5 states, and they're also involved in economic development and floodplain management. That could be a good model for the Philippines, where an electric organizations involved in the economic development and stormwater management.
Yes, so as you know, we are an archipelago, so there's a lot of water around us, and flooding is also a main problem with our river waterways and other water tributaries. Another important facility here in Tennessee, as we know, is also the Oak Ridge Research Center. So maybe you can also describe for us what could be a major function of research centers in connection with the academic institutions, so that they could really have a pivotal role in this push for renewable energies.
Right. Well, it's very important that they support each other, because the grant funding is very competitive, and Oak Ridge National Lab has a internationally renowned reputation. So they work closely with the university in our research and innovation, and it's a great combination.
So I think actually the field of renewable energy goes into the intersection really of sciences, technology, and the innovation in the energy sector. So how would you encourage also in the Philippines our students and educators to really be more involved in this field actually of science, technology, and renewable energies and innovations within the energy sector?
Well, you know, find a passion for renewable energy. I'm not an engineer. I was a city manager, but I self-taught myself on renewable energy. What I did was I would set Google alerts to biodiesel, or set Google alerts to solar. And so every day I'd get 10, 15 stories from anywhere sent to my email. So I would read them and study them and go from there and learn new contacts and discover things. You know, I've been blessed to have had a long professional career in local government, and you know, there's not a better feeling than when you're learning something on your own and it strikes a passion. No one's making you learn that, you're learning that on your own. So it may be your calling, it may not be, but whatever it is, use Google alerts, because it really gets you started.
Yes. So I think really that passion for learning what it is that you don't know, you can always learn, as long as you really have the passion for learning. So I think with this kind of model, a collaboration between the academic institutions, the local governments, and the business organizations. How do you foresee now moving forward really in terms of like the TREEDC in 5 years time or 10 years time? What prospect do you see for your organization?
Well, we did help develop a solar project in Puerto Princesa City Hall back in 2015. But to develop more in the next 5, 10 years is really just keep momentum moving forward. Reestablish our contacts because we've been off the grid, no
Yes.
pun intended.
Yes, exactly.
So, and our organization believes in, face-to-face contact, rubbing elbows together, getting things done.
Yes.
So is to kind of go back to the future, if you will, to when we started the International Exchange Program in 2012 to create more awareness
Yes.
and more opportunities, and maybe to get government to help with looking at maybe joint venture laws
Yes.
in the Philippines that are very restrictive compared to other countries, and look at ways to maybe create certification programs and excellence in renewable energy for our cities and colleges that make, if they become certified, they would get extra points towards funding opportunities.
Yes.
Have a program for children.
Mhm.
We call it our energy allowance program.
Okay.
Look at helping to save energy costs in your home, and as a child, you share in the savings. So there's all kinds of opportunities.
So with that, I'm very happy that you were able to join us today, especially because we want to continue with our good international exchange program. And hopefully once there are less travel restrictions for all of us, then we will be able, as you said, back to the future.
Right.
Again, we will get our boots back on the ground and can renew our interest in renewable energies, especially because 2022 is going to be an election year in the Philippines. And maybe this is like one of the major issues that will really have to be addressed by the forthcoming administration, the high cost of energy and the efficiency and innovation that we would really have to undertake. So maybe you can invite all of our viewers, mostly those from the academic institutions, educators, and students, to have their interest in renewable energy, as it were, renewed, and what they can take as the first few steps now in preparation for forthcoming projects and programs of TREEDC in the Philippines.
Right. You can log on our website, TREEDC.us, and that gives you a background. We have all our newsletters dating back several years. We have a report on our Philippine exchange program there. So that's a good way. Send me an email, and we'll let you know when we're coming to the country.
So we will send the contact information of Mr. Nevad with this broadcast, so that you can be in direct contact with his organization or himself, the executive director. So it was such an interesting discussion that we've had. It's really an honor and privilege for us that you were able to join us today. And so we're looking forward to again renewing our ties, getting your stakeholders back in the Philippines. So maybe as a last parting word, what do you miss most about the Philippines, and what do you look forward to when you're next return to our country?
Well, I miss the friendliness of the people. As far as what I miss specifically, it's the pancit bihon.
Yes.
That's my favorite Filipino food, is pancit bihon.
Okay, so you know what to prepare if in case he will come around to your institution in the Philippines for Mr. Nevad. So thank you so much for joining us today. So we wish you all the best in your work again for the Tennessee Renewable Energy and Economic Development Council. So this has been Attorney AMIHAN ALCAZAR, the President Emeritus of the Philippine Association of Extension Program Implementers, for AAA Live here at Katipunan channel. So please follow, like, and subscribe to us for our Facebook and YouTube channels. And we'll see you again on Wednesday, 7 to 8 in the evening every week. So stay safe and healthy, everyone, and good day. Thank you. Hello. Okay. Okay. So Welcome back to AAA Live. So we will now be entertaining our comments and questions from our live chats and audiences around the world. So I'm very happy that whatever time zone that you're in, we've had so much participation. And even though we have some limited time, I think we need to actually give a shout out to one of our televiewers, Zenny Arcelia, who's viewing us now in Hong Kong. And of course, also the El Pasigueño channel in Pasig City, Metro Manila, Philippines. So if you have any more questions and inquiries about the contact information, so we had two guests for this episode, Dr. Brent Jones, the Program Director of Languages at the Hirao School of Management in Konan University, Japan, and Director Warren Nevad, the Executive Director of the Tennessee Renewable and Energy Economic Development Council in the state of Tennessee, United States of America. So I'm very happy that we also had a shout out from Miss Alonto, Shesher Razade, and Felicidad Sumaong, who's also watching our broadcast for today. So again, for those of you who are interested to be achieving your academic goals, AAA Live is here with you, where your academic goals are advanced and achieved. So until the next time, this has been Attorney AMIHAN April ALCAZAR, the President Emeritus of the Philippine Association for Extension Program Implementers. We'll be happy to extend again our educational expertise in our next broadcast. So stay safe and healthy, everyone. And until next Wednesday, we will begin our broadcast from 7 to 8 p.m. here at Katipunan channel. Continue with your following, liking, and subscribing to our Facebook and YouTube channel. So again, stay safe and healthy, everyone. And thank you for your viewership. Mabuhay!
Inyong napakinggan si Attorney AMIHAN April ALCAZAR,
AAA Live.
naway kinapulutan ninyo ng impormasyon at kaalaman ang talakayan ng mga ekspertong nakapanayam mula sa iba't ibang larangan ng edukasyon.
AAA Live.
Ang AAA Live ay mapakikinggan at mapanonood sa Katipunan Channel tuwing araw ng Miyerkules alas 7 hanggang alas 8 ng gabi, where your academic goals will be advanced and achieved.
AAA Live.
Hanggang sa muling pagtatanghal.